Okay, let's go. I don't need to introduce this game. This game can introduce itself just fine. Even though this was the fourth installment in the Final Fantasy series, this was the one that was a real game changer as far as JRPGs in general were concerned. Because attempts at dramatic storytelling and even slightly dynamic characters were not all that common in the early 90s. And so really, pretty much all of current JRPG storytelling, okay, most of it, can backtrack its origins to Final Fantasy IV. By the way, it's only in this version of the game that there's any dialogue in this flashback scene. The thing is, in most JRPGs, if there are any introductions at all, in most JRPGs preceding Final Fantasy IV, those introductions would be completely centered around the quest. What is your quest? This is your quest. It's to defeat this bad guy, or save these crystals, or do whatever the thing you need to do is. But the intro of Final Fantasy IV is all about Cecil, the main protagonist. It's about who he is, what he's done, what he regrets, what he thinks he should be versus what he is, the relationships he has outside of the context of any quests, and how he interacts with them and how they interact with him. It was something extremely unusual and almost unheard of, really. And that storytelling ended up being wrapped up in Nobuo Uematsu's score, which is still considered excellent. So Final Fantasy IV was a very new kind of RPG for its time. At least JRPG, anyway. And here is our mandatory Mode 7. Because of all this, this is the game basically where Final Fantasy really turned into the Final Fantasy series. The series' characteristic, character-driven dramatic storytelling, combined with the fact that Nobuo Uematsu started to have some actual decent sound hardware, work together to also really wrap up all of the stuff that, all the elements that really became iconic to the Final Fantasy series. The big drawback for the US release, however, was that this is still at the point where Squaresoft did not actually employ any really native English speakers to do the localization of the text. that didn't really begin until they employed Ted Woolsey for Final Fantasy Mystic Quest and then Secret of Mana, and then his most famous work, Final Fantasy VI. Which means that there are going to be some points where it's very certain that the actual localizers in Square Japan office were like, fucking English, how does it work? I'm going to talk about that package just a little bit later, so I would hold on. It was something very different in the original Japanese version that may cause people to start to question whether or not Cecil might just be thick as a brick despite being as well-meaning as he is. And there's our tutorial instruction. And now we are back in control. Don't mess with the king. Yeah, there's some questions there. I mastered the Sword of Evil to defend my homeland. Not to do horrible things with the Sword of Evil. To be fair, Kain is pretty strong. Cecil is a Dark Knight and Kanan is a Dragoon, both of which were classes introduced in Final Fantasy III. Though there were characters identified as Dark Knights and Dragoons in Final Fantasy II, they never really had much mechanical oomph until Final Fantasy III. The Dark Knight was a strong physical attacker, and the Dragoon could do the jump command. Now I'll just take some treasures. Yeah, this is the first experienced protagonist we've ever started with in the Final Fantasy series. He's level 10, has decent equipment, and if you took a good look at the stats screen, you'll see that this game actually, under the hood, works quite a bit similarly to earlier Final Fantasy titles, in that melee attacks are done as a number of melee attacks with their own individual accuracy versus a single attack. And there is Cecil with his instant regrets. And here is our Cid for this game. Cid is always some kind of scientist or engineer and is pretty commonly associated with airships. By the way, one of the things I've had to get used to here is the fact that in this version of Final Fantasy IV, any button you press will advance the text box, including the directional pad. Remember, nothing means everything. Yeah, I don't know whether the localization of this game or Breath of Fire 2 is more rough. At first thought I'd say Breath of Fire 2, but then again I haven't played the original localization of that one in a pretty long while. And there's the Final Fantasy theme. It actually wasn't a terrible idea to localize Final Fantasy IV as Final Fantasy II, because there are a lot of thematic holdovers and material holdovers between Final Fantasy I and Final Fantasy IV. This music, for example, originated in Final Fantasy I. This game also includes other things, like you get Excalibur in pretty much the exact same way, and there are the Four Fiends. And gaining the Rat Tail as part of an important side quest. It does really feel like a follow-on to the first game, in a spirit, if not in actual story or gameplay. Anyway, this playthrough will be aided by a few choice bugs. Square wanted this game to not crash, and they were pretty good at that, but there are some other things that slip through. Now, any adventure needs money, and if I want money, first I'm going to need 65,000 shields. By the way, this is the first game with the active time battle system, even if the bars are hidden. So, if you de-equip your weapons in the correct way, the game will think that you unequipped 2 of them, and will underflow your equipment, meaning you have a lot more shields than the game would ever expect you to have. By the way, don't get used to Kane's normal attack animation. Now, let's take a look. Oh, whoops. Looks like I did it wrong. Sorry guys, I did the normal item duplication glitch instead of the item underflow glitch. Please bear with me for the time being. Still though, that actually makes things a little bit easier. Okay, the way it's supposed to work is that when you select an item slot in your inventory that's not the first, and then unequip 2 items from your hands, the game thinks that you've taken off 2 of the second item, meaning that it underflows into thinking that your left hand is equipped with about a little over 65,000 shields. And the inventory can't really handle that, so you need to equip something else in that hand, which creates a void item. And if you shove something into that void item, the game thinks there's something in that void, in this case, a portal to the plane of infinite shields. By the way, the game towns in the US version had buildings added for tutorial rooms, but that's not important to us. We'll be doing more here in the town of Baron later. Okay. Now we sell our portable hull, and that should be enough money to get us through most of the game. This may seem like a rather huge cheat, but to be perfectly honest, if you're having problems beating a boss in this game, it's because there's a problem in there that can't be solved by throwing money at it. That's a Final Fantasy V speed trick. Jury's still out on that one, little lady. It might seem extravagant, but I don't feel like grinding for equipment in this run. And now we are off. Ah, goblins. Okay, so the active time battle in this system makes this kind of a real-time combat system in which you need to wait for characters to cool down before they can act in battle after taking an action. It's possible to adjust the battle speed in the menus, but I haven't had any real need to. The battle speed is just right for me. Ah, the classic Final Fantasy victory music. Why did they ever get rid of you? Okay, the first dungeon, the Misty Cave. Not filled with any interesting monsters. Like many early game monsters in JRPGs, the stuff here are just sacks of hit points for you to beat up. They don't have any special, interesting, or terrifying abilities. That's for later. I should talk about Kane's jump command, because... well, actually not now. I'll wait until we actually use it. Go back? No, we are on the starter quest. Okay, a small note about healing items in this version. In the Japanese version, there were a lot of very specific healing items for specific status ailments. However, the English release collapsed all of them down into the single heal item. They are also fairly cheap. And when I was playing the other versions of this game, I was wondering, hey, how come I keep running out of inventory space? And that's because I had all of those specific healing items that I never had when I was playing this when I was growing up. Okay, the jump command. The jump command takes Kane off of the field of battle for a turn, and when he drops back down, he does double damage. So someone might ask, hey, there is no net gain in damage over time, why jump? Well, here's the thing. In Final Fantasy IV, there are a lot of enemies who have counterattack abilities whenever you hit them. So while you may have the same damage over time, you are on the receiving end of enemy counter abilities less, and some of these counter abilities are extremely nasty. But we must. Okay, the first boss is the Mist Dragon. It's the very first of a long series of enemies in the, a long series of tutorial bosses in the Final Fantasy series that have an attack me now and then a don't attack me at all phase or you will regret it. Like the first boss of Final Fantasy V, the Welk in Final Fantasy VI, and the Scorpion Robot in Final Fantasy VII. Unfortunately, since our fighting lineup consists of two meatheads, we don't have any really interesting magical or otherwise special abilities yet we can use against this boss. Boss fights don't really start to become interesting until a few boss fights in. And I mistimed that jump, but that's okay. Its next action would be to retransform back into dragon form. Another thing that was removed from this version were the attack items. Not that I ever used them much. It was always better for characters to use their innate abilities most of the time. And speaking of which, Cecil had one of his abilities removed, the Darkness Wave. It was a special attack that damaged all enemies at the cost of Cecil losing some of his hit points. However, it was never that much more powerful than the kick ability, and it hurt Cecil, so never saw much point in using that too much either. Well, the boss is down anyway. So it's off to Mist. Well, we blew up someone else's hometown. Okay, so here's the thing about the Japanese version. In the Japanese version, Cecil is asked to deliver the bomb ring to Mist. And I agree with this change because otherwise it makes Cecil look a little bit thick. I will never go on another of the king's bloody errands since he's been asking us to murder and pillage. And the king is like, go deliver this bomb to Mist. And Cecil is like, I wonder what His Majesty's intentions are. Oh, Dark Knight, just spreading destruction wherever you go. Yeah, Callers are, this localization's name for Summoners, a class which first showed up in Final Fantasy III. Let's not murder kids. Never again, again. Ah, Kane is a good and loyal friend. We can always trust Kane to watch our back. Yeah, that seems like a good plan. Yeah, this is the monster-infested backcountry. Yeah, I can understand why she'd be a little reluctant at this point. Yeah, it doesn't seem right to use the fight command. Oh, this is a problem. And there's our earthquake. And Kane has gone missing. Well, I'm sure we'll run into him again. Okay, time to find a town and hopefully recover. Yeah, I'm not interested in fighting right now. I want a little bit of backup. Yeah, there's the accidental text advancement that's so easy to do in this game. Yeah, this does count as a free in-stay. We'll see how things are in the morning. Oh, hello there. So they're willing to kill a kid. Okay, this fight is easy enough. Just kill the 3 soldiers and the officer will run away. I guess this is just how strong a Dark Knight is compared to the rank and file of Baron. It is possible to kill the officer for some extra bonus loot and experience, but it takes so long that it wasn't really worth it for this playthrough. Goodbye! Not that I really need to grind in this game anyway. I mean, even experience-wise. I think everyone has something to be sorry for. Yay, a new party member! Well, that's quite a half hour of game. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna cut it off here. See you next time.